Where'd my mouse go? There it is.
Oh, that's great.
Hanging out just another night of the week. Go to be more specific, it's a Tuesday Eve. Got some ideas that just might intrigue. You should come on by tonight, we're spilling the beans.
And we're
Okay.
back.
Spilling the beans. There we are.
Oh, cool.
So 10th episode.
10th episode.
10th milestone.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in. I think we've sent it out to a few people, the usuals. Just leave comments. We've got a nice little chat thing here where we can see.
Command plus.
Command plus. Yeah, we're trying to.
That's how you zoom in.
Yeah, to a window.
Figured it out.
Yeah. So 10th episode, it's kind of a neat thing. First episode was recorded, not live, but it was about Quint. Second episode,
The potentials.
potentials. Third
Mhm.
episode was
Third episode was.
Oh, we should have written this down.
yeah, we should have written it down.
Oh,
Oh, so many neat things.
Oh, I think it was the comic characters that can do like very little. Like
That was
guy-
the potentials.
That was the
Yeah,
potentials.
so I think 3 was
I thought 3 was the potentials. There was something in between there.
was 3 the OG,
There was something in between there.
Well, that's all right.
Uh,
Number 3, because I don't know what number 4 is.
I don't know. I don't know what.
Oh.
I don't remember what we did last week.
Yeah. Oh well, last week, me neither.
I remember. Wait, last week.
episode 3 was the Spitfire, but it ended up being the Pogcast.
Oh, the
Oh,
podcast.
yeah.
Yeah. Guitar pedal pop stompers.
Yep.
Episode 4 was the projection table.
Mhm.
Neat. Yep.
5 was the homemade T-shirts.
Oh yeah, one of a kind.
6 was the wall comics.
Oh yeah. Yep,
7
MacBooks.
was the paranormal one. 8
Okay.
was the augmented reality one,
Oh yeah.
and then 9 was the zine one.
Nice. And
Yeah.
our biggest one was the most popular was the paranormal one, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, that was a fun one, and I'd like to do more of those and other things. But yeah, as we said in the episode too, all of us and all of our friends, we love talking about that stuff. So, so that's great. But and things to come. We definitely like the idea of like themes. So, I don't
Shout
know.
them out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Also, definitely let us know if there's anything you want to talk about. Something neat that friend of mine left that I wanted to bring up too. They sent me a chat, which is pretty neat later in the show. But this show we're going to talk about spaces,
Creative spaces.
creative
Mhm.
spaces.
Spaced out spaces.
Yep. Yeah, I put Abel's quote in there in the title: "Spaced out spaces," or "Spaces spaced out."
Something like that.
Yeah.
I don't remember it.
We were just thinking about, and we brought it up a few times. The space where you create or come up with ideas.
Mhm.
Some people, it's smaller. Some people, they have space, literal space. We're fortunate to have that.
A
But
little-
also you have a little space sometimes too, where that's all you need. And Kaylee mentioned that like the three of us have different ways of.
Kind of organizing and like setting up our spaces and different like workflows
Yeah,
to how we create stuff.
yeah. Creativity is really the big thing.
Mhm.
How can you be creative if you even want to be? And then that also got us outside, and sorry I bumped that. That also got us into a discussion about creativity and is it about production and how much you do, but really also we figured if you have an idea or there's something that helps you with your flow of creativity, right? That's what we're talking about, and our space, at least for me, has a lot to do with it, different ways,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, I think we were talking about how all of us have a different way of doing things, way of setting up our spaces. They're very
Mhm.
different. I will say, I think as far as lineage between us, we all seem to like to have things that inspire us hanging up all
Mm.
around,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
All of our spaces do.
you were talking about that in, I forget which one. It might have been the Wall Comics one, but how you have like your area of art that when you take a break, instead of like
Mhm.
going on your phone or something, it's nice to be able to go and look at that.
Yep.
Mhm.
And I feel like we kind of like do the same thing. Like I'll spend like an hour just like looking at my walls in my area
Mhm.
just to get inspired by like everything going on there, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you have a very colorful area and very chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
And then John, yeah, I always, or Abel, I'm sorry, I go to your spot, excuse me, and I always say the joke is it's the Apple Store,
Yeah.
you know, it's everything is like really nice, the lighting is really comfortable, very welcoming, and yours is also, I think, welcoming.
Yeah, I would say all of ours are welcoming,
Yeah.
for
Mhm.
sure. Like, I don't feel at any point like, even though how I like my area set up, when I walk into here, I don't feel uncomfortable in any way.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's just a little more messy than others.
Yeah.
But that's also project based. For me, I need like the actual. I prefer the actual space. You know, like the openness at least to a room.
Yep.
Like behind us. Like I just always love it when things are just to the side against walls, and then you can make a mess and then quickly push it aside and do the next thing.
Mhm.
And my organization is only it's getting better as I get older, but it's really like it does not come naturally for me. You know, and it is my friend for sure. You know, one thing that I am really good at is making lists, you know, and we had mentioned in other podcasts, like for ideas and just staying creative is like write everything down, you know, if you can.
Yeah, that's
75% of
huge.
it might be nothing.
Yeah.
But that 25% might be really great. And, you know, you might look back at that other 75%, which you didn't think was good before, and just have it. One of the best things, pastimes that I like to do is just look at old notes,
Yeah.
old drawings or old projects. And that's if you have the time, but you know, you can make the time. And that's where lists come into play for me, is blocking things out, you know,
Mhm.
scheduling
Yeah.
and having that list out in the open, or maybe even I like to set things up as my list. So almost literally try to set these things up and so that they're ready to just go. But I'm also all over the place when it comes to organization.
I think me being so organized wasn't natural for me.
Yeah.
Actually, I think there was a point where I had a lot of stuff. I was even, a collector, I would say.
Hmm.
And I would say less organized. But I think two things really forced me to get really organized. And then when I kind of felt the benefits of it, I just couldn't live without it.
Mhm.
The first one was looking for things. Like, I felt like I would just put things down and then I would go crazy looking for it. And usually you're looking for something, especially in an art studio or something.
Mhm.
You're looking for something when you have an idea, when you want to be creative.
Mhm.
And I found that initial amount of time looking for something for 30 minutes, whatever it is, my pen, whatever it is, tool, anything, that it would just kind of really plummet the creative idea.
Right.
It would put me in a state of frustration where
Mm-hmm.
I would just be like, well, this isn't
Right.
good.
It becomes
So
like a
that-
hindrance to it.
Yeah. So I just started to like say, all right, everything has a place and it's going to go back to that place. And at least for me, when I felt the benefits of that, when I was like, oh, I know where this thing is,
Mhm.
it was so much faster. And I was never put myself in sort of that like terrible mood, angry before I start to make something or whatever.
Yeah.
And the other thing was also same idea with it being like sort of a time sucker.
Mhm.
When I would work on something that I would work on regularly, in particular, like the music and the record art, there were little things that I would discover as I was doing it. I always feel like I'm in a state of learning.
Mm.
Little things I would discover as, what I do in certain situations with my drum set,
Yeah.
how I mic it, things like that. And I would find that I would have to like relearn that stuff if ever I took a break.
Mm.
And I came back to it, and I would learn it the hard way, because I would go mic my drum set again, and I would forget that, oh yeah, if I put it like this is where I get the sound that I like. you know?
Mhm.
So I started doing the whiteboard thing, where I have whiteboards in each area, and I would write those little notes down so I never forgot that, because you would
Real
lose
good.
time and you would learn the hard way when you didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those two things like just sort of keep me in a state of I guess tranquility, if you will, peace.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys feel like any of that happens to you guys?
I like to have things like kind of a mix of like out in sight, so I can like see everything that I need. But I do like that little bit of like a bin of just a bunch of crap in it
Yeah.
that like, oh, I know some of this material I need is in here, because then sometimes that allows you to like find something else that you're like, oh, but this could be something I could use too. So I feel like I like a mix of like both of it,
Mm.
And you
because I
said
do like that rummaging.
You said a little bit.
Huh?
You said a little bit.
A lot, probably a lot of it.
Well, yeah, and I don't think that's bad at all. You have
Mm.
it's just you have several of those bins.
No, I do. Yeah.
Big
But those
bins.
are mostly like, I feel like they're, wouldn't you say that maybe you're more organized than you think? Because would you say that in one of those bins you have everything that you would use as like a costume? Like, does all that stuff go in one bin?
Mm-hmm. I do
Okay.
organize it in that way.
So I would argue that that's somewhat organized. You
Yeah,
know?
definitely. Oh
Yeah.
no, yeah, there is like a method to the madness.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. You know where like everything is
Mm-hmm.
when you go into your space. If I'm looking for something that you might have, glue gun.
You have a rough idea.
And
Yeah.
well, but
True.
sometimes she like it's like secret passageways. You hit like a few keys on a piano and it like opens up. She like lifts up like certain boxes and it's like a weird puzzle, and then like slides something out and it's a drawer and it has all of those pieces in it. It's just really
Mhm.
really wild. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's chaotic, but that's a chaos. There's something to that chaos. Like it's
Mm.
you know where and your memory is really good too. You have a really good memory. Kaylee remembers where I leave my keys hours before,
Really?
where she saw me put them down or
Mhm.
where they are. So you just have a really good memory with that. My memory is not that great. I will lose things I lose them immediately. I don't know where my keys are right now.
Yeah.
I have no idea where they are. So yeah, writing things down and keeping everything is just something I have to do. And things do get messy with that, because I might even forget where does this go, and I don't even want to bother with it.
Mm.
And I'm not sure of the terms. I get confused with different terms, but it's like this mind that's like everywhere. I just got to hop to this, and then my nephew, he's 4, but he reminds me very much of myself with. He's a bit rude sometimes with it. I don't do this, but sometimes I wonder if I do. I was having a conversation with him because he asked me about something, like a piece, actually something that I drew. He was asking about it. He's like, "Oh, this looks neat." I was like, "Wow," and I'm explaining it to him because he's like, "How did you do this?" And in mid-conversation, mid-sentence, he just walked away. He ran away, and he said, "Let's do this." And I started to walk over to him. I said, "It's quite rude, da 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 da." But his mind just does that. But he remembered everything I was still saying. Later, he referenced it. He said, "That's kind of like how you looked at another painting that was similar."
Mm.
He's like, "That's how you said you did this." And I was like, "I thought you weren't listening. I thought you were running around." So kids are interesting with their But I sometimes try to see some of our friends who have kids and how they organize their play areas and their art and stuff. I wonder if it shows that early. You know what I mean?
Mm.
That organization, whether they're better with like maybe memory does have to do with it. Maybe a little bit. Like you don't have to be organized because you just remember where everything is. You
Mm.
know,
Mhm.
but organization no doubt helps all the time.
You brought up something interesting, Kaylee, when you said that you like to have everything out in the open.
Mhm.
And I think that might even be the third thing that I do. Everything has to be like open. I
Yeah.
have no drawers. I have no closets.
Mm.
Everything is like out,
Mhm.
and everything has, a visible place. I can see anything from across the room. The where my wrenches are, they're all out. They're not, in a bin or whatever. But my
Yeah.
point being, you seem to be the same way, where like everything's out and visible.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I feel like you do that too, Connor. Like you
There's
don't
nothing
really
like
have
hidden.
like too many like drawers or anything. Like you kind of like to have your stuff like right there. So
Out.
it's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
and you organize in like stations too. Like I mean, they may like spill over a little bit.
Oh,
you
I
know?
love the idea of
but-
like what even like I think in my head, like stations, like okay, you have
Yeah.
this and this and this.
Same way.
You know what I mean? Every station is where. What station do you feel like having fun with today? You know, and you start from there. You build up.
Yeah.
Jamar, what's up? And that's Jamar's on, and so you just and everybody's different. I wonder, Kaylee, like with you.
Mhm.
Like it looks like it's all your station. Like you might do, and you spread out too. You like also taking you'll just take all your stuff anywhere,
Mhm.
and post up outside with a bunch of paints and a canvas, right?
Yeah, I don't think I have like a station for this. It all like kind of spills over. Like I rarely end up painting over there. I
Yeah.
always end up moving my like paint over here,
Mhm.
like anywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I kind of like mix everything together.
Yeah. It's
all based
different.
off of feel, wherever you want to paint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like what
interesting.
feels comfortable right now for like
Mhm.
what time of day or like what's going on, you
Mm.
know.
Yeah. And then there's the idea too, because we haven't had the space. We've had it, for quite some time. But even before that, when we had just our rooms, right, when you're kids, but
Mhm.
also if we didn't have the space and we had just our apartments or our homes, you can still, even with a small nook, like or a shed or
Mhm.
your room or even just a notepad or anything, especially with computers now, you can have a whole. And then with the augmented reality stuff we were talking about, you could have a whole digital room,
Mhm.
but or virtual room, that is. But still, there's also in your mind, there's room in there. We were talking about how, like, there's kind of the space in the room, in any size room that I'm in, big, small, whatever, or any place that I'm in, kind of making it my own and making it comfortable. Really, is it makes space in my head too. There's something to that. And I think that's like kind of like a ultimate goal for me, is how much literal space can you have in your head?
Mhm.
Just space. Not easy to acquire, but with that space is ideas can flow in and out, creativity, all of that good stuff. It can all live there. And I think luckily, like we all have the physical space and a good enough amount of mental space to, or just head space. Well, I don't know what space that would be. Spacing out, trying to think of what that space is, but you still always have space,
Mhm.
even if you don't have literal space, you always have space to come up with ideas. And that's really what the show's all about.
Do you think there are like you guys have like certain routines or kind of like ways to kind of make your atmosphere like comfortable to get into like the headspace?
Certainly no fluorescent lights.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, unless I have to, it's mostly mood lighting.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
When I'm working on the record art, I have to have like natural bright light, just to see the artifacts.
Mhm.
I wish I didn't, because
Mm.
I would never use that sort of light, because it's very gross and uninspiring, I think, for the most part, like fluorescent light in particular.
It's always at some kind of business or at work,
Yeah, you
you
just
know,
you
at the
feel like,
market.
yeah,
It's at these places that are like, I mean, yeah, just
not enjoyable.
no, not in the least.
No.
Not in the least. Well, I mean, at least, when it comes to time of leisure or relaxation or creativity, very, very tough. Yeah,
It-
mood lighting's huge.
I find that
Mhm.
very interesting that, like, I wonder why, like natural light bulbs, like white light bulbs, are uncomfortable for us, like even fluorescent lights,
Yeah.
when it's mimicking daylight. It's very
Yeah.
interesting.
Is the
Hmm.
And
is
then
the
the intent is to mimic daylight.
yeah.
So
Are they just not doing a good job
I don't know. And
at
the
it?
intent of the yellow lights was
Yeah.
to mimic like lanterns
Huh.
Huh.
and fire.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
Wow.
totally more for like the more warm,
Yeah.
warm lighting. I do like green, like really like sharp green lighting, like in like corners of rooms or something.
Hmm.
There's something about that that's kind of like neat. I love ceiling lighting.
Hmm.
That kind of ridged ceiling light, like hidden lighting, I guess to say, where it looks like it's bouncing off of something.
Oh yeah, I do that a lot
That's
because I don't
really
like to
cool
look
lighting.
into
Yeah, look into the light. Yeah.
lights. Yeah, I have like all those sound panels
Yeah.
in the back there,
Mhm.
and I take just a regular bulb and like a clamp light, and I actually put it up on top, in between the ceiling and the sound panels on the
Mhm.
ceiling,
Nice. Yeah.
and it just looks like they glow from the back of them,
Yeah, that's cool.
and it's super like mood
Yeah.
lighting.
Yeah. That's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I've got some those nice lanterns in the back.
Yeah.
Make it look kind of like a little sea shanty.
Mm,
You know?
those are really nice.
Yeah, but so yeah, lighting is huge. And yeah, routine, I mean, it's also again, it comes down to times for me.
Mhm.
I have a workflow that this is kind of embarrassing. I have a workflow for everything that's actually written out, like in like if I learn let's say I learned something in Photoshop, like I'm trying to figure out how to do something.
Mhm.
I will actually write this out in like a numbers sheet,
Mhm.
and so I can always like reference it.
That's smart.
And I do that for almost everything. Like
Yeah,
almost
that's really smart.
Mm.
everything that I learn, I actually like make, and I'm creative about it. I
Mhm.
make these sort of like, I change the fonts, and I sometimes draw with the pen on it, and create all these sheets that I reference.
Cool.
But yeah, as far as workflows go, I'm just like, I'm mostly, when I'm trying to do something new, I'm always thinking about building the workflow to be able to replicate this over and over and over again in
Mhm.
different ways.
Yeah. That is really smart. I
Yeah.
don't think I do that. I will write out what I'm going to do.
Kind of like a to-do.
Yeah, I'm all about to-do lists. Yeah, I will just like write out and it might get really intricate, like even down to like the time, because I love trying to get as many things done if I have the time to be creative or put into it. Which is kind of a limitation, but again, I need something to kind of put a leash around that back and forth, and that I'm easily distracted by things. Or
Do you always find that you check them off?
I'll check them off, definitely. And the idea too is get things. I also want to get a lot of things that have nothing to do with creativity off my plate before
Oh
Mhm.
yeah,
I
I do
it.
that.
So like dishes, laundry.
Oh yeah,
So it might be a day off, but I'm spending half of my day
yeah.
in the early part just to get that stuff
Get
off.
all the bullshit
Yeah,
done.
and so I'll
Mhm.
do that stuff down to a time.
Yeah.
And if I can get that done if I can be ahead of the timing that I've estimated
Yeah.
as to how long each thing will take me, that's even more time I have for my creative. And then if I really want to go nuts, I'll try to time that out. At this time I will do music. At this time I will do, I'll draw. This time I need to catch up on comics, whatever it is,
Mm,
for like a day off,
mm,
And a lot of that stuff too, again, like goes back to, you don't necessarily need the space. It's really, for me, it's routine and time. It's finding a routine
mm.
and how I'm best going to use the time that I have. That's not work.
Mhm.
Or if I'm at work, if I have any time off
Yeah.
there or whatever, if you can find it on certain days,
That's one thing I
awesome.
always wanted to do, was to build like a routine.
Mhm.
I've done it in the past where I've tried to pay attention to like, my body and my brain and how it's like acting when I do certain things at certain times, and how much energy I have throughout the day when I'm doing that. So like I've tried to build up routines where like, I don't know, like you know, riding the exercise bike first thing in the morning, and then making a smoothie, and then getting into my work, and how does that affect my day. And I've done it where I've like written down like all the different days that like I'll get done with a day and I'll be like, man, like that was an awesome day. I got a shit ton done. So I'd write down everything I did that day, and I'll reference that.
Mhm.
And I've built routines in the sense that I've put them down on paper, or on the computer, like what days were productive, but I've never actually been able to implement it for a long time.
Yeah.
There's always something that comes up that throws it off,
Mm.
that I end up getting in this whirlwind of like, oh shit, now I got to get this done. I got to get this done. And then all routine goes out the window,
Yeah.
and I'm, printing records like a madman because my shows are coming up, and
Well, that's
Mhm.
also juggling priorities, right?
That's
I
exactly
mean,
what it is.
that's the tough part. I mean, yeah, and my routine is pretty basic, like on work days, and it's almost impossible even at work and everything at my job is scheduled,
Mhm.
or I'm making my own schedule throughout the day. So everything is like in these blocks, and so that really, and I like that. I like having like,
Yeah, that's helpful if you have something in your life that is definitely steady, right? Something
yeah.
that is like something you have to do every day at this time.
Hmm.
It's probably easier to get on a routine because you probably end up going to bed around the same time.
Oh, everything,
know?
everything. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
for me, it's necessary. I'd be on the street right now, walking around, not knowing what's happening. If it
Mm.
weren't for routine, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be doing this. That's for sure. I would not be doing this.
As much as I would
Confused.
love to have routine, I have none.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is just all priorities. Like
Mm.
you said, everything prioritized in my head. I quickly will do it like in a day. Just be like, I have to get this done. This. If I don't get to this, it's okay if it goes on to tomorrow.
As long as you get
And that's-
like the
Mhm.
big things done.
That's
Yeah.
all done in the moment. They change all the time, where I'm like, okay, this isn't going to happen.
Priority shift.
Priority shift. I do it on the fly. But I really don't want to be like that, because I feel like I was actually reading a little bit about that whole like fight or flight mode
Hmm.
versus you being sort of in a calm state.
Mhm.
And fight or flight mode is basically like, generations ago, when you'd be in fight or flight mode when a bear was chasing you, when you were running around, and then being relaxed is when like everything's all set, you have food, you don't have to worry about it, and I think ultimately you might even call it zen, but ultimately like the goal would be to like be in zen all the time. I feel like that would make you very happy if you were at that
Yeah.
place.
I could
But
see that. Yeah.
I feel like I am 100% in fight or flight mode like all the time.
Yeah, maybe that's why it helps you to be organized, is so that when you're not in that fight or flight mode, or you don't have to be,
Yeah.
you have everything you need right there, and you
Yeah.
utilize that organization during
Right.
that fight or flight.
It's
you know
almost
what I
like
mean?
I've accepted it.
Yeah,
And then what are the things I can do around that
yeah,
that will save me time?
Mhm.
Yeah.
You have kind of like an annual routine too.
I do have yeah, that is,
You know what I mean?
that is true.
And so your priorities shift around that, which is, yeah, that's wild. That's different. That's really, really different. So you're creative, like even like time to be creative, or I mean, or to implement these. That's really what it is you can be creative and come up with these ideas, which is great at any time you want,
Mhm.
and anywhere you want. But it's finding the time and to implement them and the energy.
Hmm.
And do you remember it?
Mm.
Right. That's why I write down the ideas. Yeah, that's different too. Yeah, for me, it's the summertime usually is when I have a lot of free time
Free
to
time.
go
Yeah.
into stuff.
Yeah.
And even then, it's hot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's very hot here. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's different, and I wonder how it is for others too. Others just like I see some of the most organized folks, and I ask them about this and that, and I was mentioning earlier, this person that said to me today they're not creative at all. They're talking about left and right brain. I said, "Oh, I'm not creative at all, but I'm very organized."
Hmm.
And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting," because I know people who are extremely creative and who are extremely organized, and it turned out, like I said, they were actually more creative than they thought.
Yeah.
Mm.
Just because you don't do creative things maybe or have like the energy to doesn't mean, like, I like to think that everyone is creative.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about that.
Yeah.
They
And
just may not have the motivation to be.
Yeah. I was telling you guys earlier, but over the pandemic, I really wanted to try to improve my memory. And I just wanted to see if there was a way that I could do that. This kind of ties into someone who thinks they're not creative and thinks that they're all like sort of more studious, and that their left brain, right brain thing, they lean one way, whatever. Well, I was reading a lot of Tony Buzan books, and he's like the guy that he did a lot of research, a lot of studies. He studied a lot of savants, but he did a lot with the mind, how to improve your memory. He's like the inventor of like mind maps.
Mm.
If anybody doesn't know what that is, they're like sort of like you draw a circle and you write something in the middle of it, and then you make these branches off and create sort of a plan out of all these ideas that you eventually tie together. Great way to take notes, by the way. But anyway, yeah, he makes the argument that studious people that are all like book smart and more mathematical
Yeah.
are actually very creative, and they do use the creative side of your brain. And I don't know if he subscribes to the left brain, right brain at all, to be honest, but he uses the creative side of your brain very often, because our brains cannot actually memorize, has a very difficult time anyway, memorizing actual words on a page. Like that's not something even savants do. If you were to talk to someone who is one of those people that can open up a book and like, read the whole book in 15, 20 minutes or whatever, and remember everything on the page, they're not remembering text, letters. That's not what they're remembering. Their brain is actually creating pictures and little movies in their head that for each sentence, for each paragraph, that are extremely elaborate.
Wow.
And they're extremely bizarre, make no sense for the most part. And all of these sort of bizarre things are little hints, and that's how they remember everything. And they're able to do it just extremely quickly.
Yeah,
we like can fast. All that's do
like
it.
Yeah,
we can all do it, and it's really how you remember things. Like it's helped me so much.
Yeah,
like I have books that I've read that I almost feel like I've memorized them reading them the first time through. I'm talking about books like, stupid things that I was randomly interested in.
Yeah.
And
what's the trick? What do you do?
You're actually creating pictures in your brain of the things that you're reading.
And that's what you want to do?
Yeah. And these pictures are bizarre, but like, let's just say you have an idea
Yeah.
Let's just say just a random idea. I don't know. You can
A floating egg.
Well, it would more be an actual idea of something that you wanted to do, like just something random. It doesn't have to be exotic.
Oh yeah.
You know, let's just say like, well, I had this idea about Quint.
Yeah.
Making a comic about Quint. Well, what's in your head right now when
Right.
you think of that?
Yeah.
Don't you see a picture? Don't you see a picture
Yeah,
of
I
a
see,
comic,
like, a
maybe a
quick-
cover? It says Quint, something like that.
Yeah, I see just Quint. Yeah,
Yes,
like
your
him,
your
yeah.
brain creates pictures
Yeah.
when you try to remember things.
Right.
And if you work at that and you try to create those pictures on your own,
Right.
it can you'll remember things much faster. And this is not a new thing. This is something that's been going on forever. And there's all different ways of doing it. There's all different techniques, like the memory palace, which is like you actually store your ideas inside of a room you're very familiar with, in different corners, in books that are in your room, someplace you're very familiar with. But anyway,
What?
the point,
You store ideas. Oh, like you imagine it.
you imagine yourself walking
That
through
is
the studio,
cool. Whoa.
Mm.
and you put this idea of the Quint comic in with your comic books, and it's in there.
Oh
And
wow.
you do it in your head, and you store all of your ideas inside of your place.
That's
Called
super
a-
imaginative.
It's called the memory palace.
Yeah.
I've done it in the past, and I would say it's just not the funnest thing for me to do. I enjoy more so, like, more often than not, I'm creating comic book covers of everything in my head.
Mhm.
Like even stupid things I got to learn, like, how do I invest in the stock market? But you can create these very imaginative things that are completely bizarre. And the more weird you make them,
Hmm.
the easier they are to remember, which was even more interesting.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That is cool.
Um,
So like, yeah. So anything.
but
that
it went to your point, to what I was talking about was people who think they're not creative, but they're able to remember things that they learn very quickly.
Mm-hmm. All right.
They're not remembering text on a page. They have all these
They're just
very
imagining,
imaginative
yeah.
things in their head, and a lot of people don't realize that they're doing it.
Yeah.
But it was almost like reading like his books
Mhm.
and going over. He has a great PBS documentary from like the 80s that is unbelievable.
Cool.
But it was almost like becoming conscious again.
Yeah.
It was almost like, oh yeah, I do that.
Mm.
And all the things I remember are associated to
To
like
an
pictures.
image.
To an image in my
imagined
head.
image. Yeah.
It was very bizarre. It was like really like understanding your brain.
That's so neat.
It's so neat
Well,
and it's
yeah.
so cool.
Folks
Right.
should remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make an image of what it's like to make an image in your brain so that you remember it. I'm doing it right now.
Yeah. There's a great so Tony Buzan's books, I would say, are pretty lengthy and they're pretty wordy.
Mm-hmm.
There is a guy, I believe his name is something Horsley. I read his book too. And he gathers a lot of these ideas and makes them very digestible. And he's a chess grandmaster.
Oh, cool. Neat.
And this is how he remembers all of his moves and all of the different things by associating with things. And he goes and talks about how like the people that do competitions about memory, like people who remember the first 10,000 pages of Moby Dick or something and can tell you what on every page what's what and what word it is on the page, how many lines down it is, stuff like that. They're using these techniques and they just get really good at them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Kevin Horsley?
Kevin Horsley, yeah.
That's neat.
It's a very digestible read and awesome like lead into this stuff. That was the first book I read, and he just raves about Tony Buzan through the whole book. And then that's how I learned about Tony Buzan.
That's so cool.
Oh.
Well, you mentioned chess too. That's funny because when you were talking about that imagery in your head, it made me think of Queen's Gambit. The show Queen's Gambit.
Yeah.
This like
Oh yeah,
prodigy. She was also on a lot of lithium, but still in her head she would like, have these visual
oh yeah,
forms, and she would be able to just go through, and it was visual. It was an imagined picture in her head, and almost kind of hallucination of exactly. And they say also like in all kinds of things like how important visualization is for you know, for sports, for anything, like
Yeah.
see it, you know, become it, or it will be, you know, if you can see it or imagine it enough, it makes its way there. You know, you have to do more than just that, but still, that's really, really cool. That is really neat.
But just as a, you know, a word to all those people that think they're not creative,
Hmm.
especially the people that are very studious, you are probably way more creative than you actually think.
Mm.
Yeah.
And once you realize this, you might realize like you're super creative.
Yeah.
I mean, just imagine these crazy imaginative things you're pulling out of your math book to remember things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Once you realize what they are, try drawing them.
Well,
Yeah.
it's like Lewis Carroll was a math and logic teacher,
Mhm.
Wow. Yeah.
and he came up with Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like that's all sorts of like absurd and
Yeah,
know,
I think that's a-
creative things.
That's a stigma, right? You know, like that people that are bookish, or, you know, not so much, that are like bookish or like mathematical. And I don't know where that stigma came from, or
That there's a separation between the logical and like the creative,
The artistic.
brain.
Well,
you
I
know?
think what happened was they studied the brain, and they did see that, like, if you're problem solving,
yeah,
you know, I don't even know which side's which, but one side of the brain looked more stimulated than the other.
yeah.
Mm.
Left is creative, right is logical.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So one's more stimulated than the other, but it doesn't change the fact that you cannot only use half of your brain. And especially when you're trying to remember things, you are probably using more of the creative side.
Yeah, I
The
don't know
other
what lobe
side,
that is.
the other side is just reading.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The creative side is creating all the things that for you to remember.
that's cool. I
Mhm.
wonder if they've done scans on like someone who's reading. You know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah,
seeing
it's-
like brain activity when they're reading, and see which lobes, you know, like light up.
Yeah.
You know, that'd
It's-
be kind of neat.
It was so interesting reading that, because I was like, I feel like there's not enough research in this. Like the stuff that this guy's bringing out is like crazy, and it almost made me feel like, oh, I think like this is like a supercomputer, and we just don't know how to unlock it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That's what I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
Well,
know,
there's that. Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
And wanting to. Rob just made of. Oh, hey Taylor. Taylor's listening in Pawtucket. Rob said a great thing. He said everyone is creative. It's just a matter of wanting to find your creative outlet. Once you do, it'll be nearly impossible to lose
Yeah.
it. That's awesome. So well said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really
that's true.
good.
Yeah.
Very good vulgar.
Do you
RM.
guys have moments like that when you realized, like, I'm sure you do, Kaylee, with clowning,
Mm-hmm.
you know, where it was just like almost a jaw-dropping moment, like, I want to do this forever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Even with like painting and stuff too, though. Like I remember just like drawing and stuff like when I was younger, but when I really got into like painting like regularly and like creatively, because I
Yeah.
remember taking like art classes in high school, and even in college I took one, and it was miserable because it was all very rigid, like you have to do it this one way or it's wrong, and I was like, that
Mhm.
doesn't make sense. But then when I started doing it on my own, it was like there's so much freedom here, and there's just like never ending possibilities, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and it's for me, I think I've been there, but it hasn't been as like obvious to me. It's just like my favorite things are music and art,
Mm.
you know, so to want to find the creative outlet, it's so well said that Vulgar RM said that it's a matter of wanting to find your creative outlet, like wanting to find it.
Yeah.
And wanting to find, to find it.
Mm.
And I'm always trying to figure out what they are. Like it's different for me all the time too. Sometimes I feel like jamming, sometimes I feel like painting,
Mm-hmm.
drawing,
You've really taken to like illustrating.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying that. I've been playing the piano a lot. That's super fun. And it's the
Mhm.
time, but wanting to utilize that time for that, just like Rob said, everyone's creative. It's whether they want to or not. Like this
Mhm.
person I talked to earlier, they were just they're not really into that. Although once they're like, oh, I had this cool idea for a film, and
Mhm.
it was a neat idea, you know. So that's
I would-
also is wanting.
I would
Yeah.
say that like when you have those ideas, like I can see someone like that person was not felt that they weren't a creative thing, but then they just happen to mention to you like, oh, I did have this idea for a film, and I, at that moment, especially to someone like that, their thinking process is probably like, oh, it's not like I could ever make a film. You know what I mean? That's too
Mhm.
daunting of a task. That's like way leagues away from where I am right now. And I would argue that what you should do when you have an idea like that is flesh it out in very small increments.
Mhm.
Like just start by like, oh, what would happen in the film? Maybe this happened. Just write a little paragraph about the beginning and maybe the end, and well, how do I get from point A to point B? Do, 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 do. And you'll be surprised that like if ever you get to a point where like, I don't know, you actually just wrote like a loose rough draft, maybe it doesn't even have dialogue, but just like a story that just kind of, this happened, da, 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 da. You'd be surprised how excited you'll actually get with it.
Yeah, especially once you start writing in dialogue,
Yep.
maybe,
And then that
fleshing out characters,
momentum, is the thing that brings you to the end.
Yeah,
If you try to look at the big picture from the beginning, like,
it's daunting.
oh my
Mhm.
God, I'll net like I say to myself, like, I don't know how, like, I don't know how many music records I've made, but like, I look at it now and I'm just like, oh my God, that's so daunting. But then every time I remember saying that every time before I would make like a record,
Mhm.
be like, oh my God, how am I going to come up with? I just finished one song. How am I going to do this 10 more times?
Mhm.
But then you just start the next one. And it's like you have to step away from that big picture and you just got to be like, just do this.
Yeah.
Even if it's just for fun and it's just a hobby, you'll see how creative you probably really are,
Mhm.
And
And then you can't wait to do it. And that's
and then
what
you
you're
can't wait to
excited
do it. What happens is you get really excited about it.
Taylor
Mhm.
mentioned the interloper table.
Oh, the
That is a
interloper
very
table.
good. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
basic. That also has to do with Kaylee's bins sometimes. Not to say they're all bins, but
Mhm.
um,
Katie coined that term.
Katie, yeah, it's
Mhm.
great. For especially unorganized folks, you only have this one spot where you put all like kind of miscellaneous or
Mhm.
whatever
It's like
else.
where you drop your keys, but it also has like some of your paint stuff. Maybe it's got some snacks on it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's got something that you're gonna put away in a couple weeks. Like,
I always
got
thought the idea
everything.
to the interloper table too was good. It was like eventually you want this to be empty.
mm-hmm.
So you slowly start to you're not really sure where to put this stuff, but you slowly start to find, but also it might be stuff that you're working on. Yeah, it was great. It
Oh,
was
I got
really
that.
nice. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it screams at me every time I walk into the space.
Yeah.
It's just screaming at me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really smart.
Yeah.
That's really great.
Yeah. I get that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, that's really neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, don't. I mean, I love you saying too. Don't put down, or think that you're not creative in any such way. I mean, everybody is, like Rob said.
Most people feel that because it's too daunting of a task to get to the end point.
Yeah, I think that's
Mhm.
really great.
And that is not the fun of it.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
fun of it is taking little bits
yeah,
and enjoying yourself, and then
that's why you're doing it. Right.
it starts to tickle your belly.
Mm-hmm.
And then you sort of become a little bit obsessive about it, and you talk about it to your friends, and your friends are rolling their eyes, but it doesn't matter, because you're having fun and
Yeah,
you're doing something new.
that's the whole idea to it. Yeah, to it all.
It's funny, we were talking about Robbie's on there.
Yeah.
I remember, so my first experience with music was one of those experiences. I've only had like 2 in my life, but with music, it was Robbie, when we were in 8th grade, taught me how to play Smells Like Teen Spirit. Now, I had never touched a guitar. I liked rock music. I liked all music, but I'd never touched a guitar. And he showed me how to play Smells Like Teen Spirit, and like I felt my whole world just like zoo when I actually was able. He he tuned it down too, so you could just like hold your fingers.
Oh,
like
and just move them. Yeah.
you know, like all of them. You just bar the
Yeah.
whole fretboard. And it was like a life-changing moment for me. It
Yeah.
was like, I can't believe it. And then I went home. I think they used to let you take out the. No, I remember what happened. I convinced my parents to buy me a guitar, a bass. I didn't even know there was a difference, but I ended up with a bass. And I remember playing along with the song,
Yeah.
and it just blew my mind. And I could hear like the sort of intonation, like me in key.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh my God, this
Yeah.
is the most amazing thing ever.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
Yeah, obsessed ever since.
Mm-hmm.
Drop D. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. If it wasn't for Robbie, I wouldn't be playing guitar probably.
No.
Hmm.
Good job, Rob.
Good job, Rob.
How long have we been on here?
51 minutes.
All right. So to tie it all up, get yourself a space and be creative in it.
Mhm.
Doesn't have to
External or
be a lot.
internal space?
Yeah.
You can have space in here too
Yeah.
for that.
Find
But
the right
yeah,
Yeah. If you want to
practices
do an
for you.
internal one, read some Tony Bazan books.
that's
Mhm.
cool.
I just imagine him sitting on a chair like this, like all day.
In
Just
his
like
space.
having a blast in his head.
Yeah. That's
You know?
space. That's internal
know?
space. That's good stuff. But also,
Mhm.
yeah, a corner in your room or anything. That's
Mm-hmm.
really, really good stuff.
Yeah, and just finding the practices of like what works for you. To,
Yeah, routine is good. It does
Be
help for some of our more creative folks, who are like more all over the place. Routine, as difficult as it maybe helps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Setting aside specific time for things.
Mm-hmm.
key. But
Mhm.
also want to do it. No, you want to do it. There's a reason you're doing whatever it is you're doing.
And you can do it. Mm-hmm.
You can do it. Yeah, yeah.
It is impossible to only use one side of your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody uses their creative side. It's impossible.
Well, that's good. That's good news for everybody.
Yeah.
Excellent. You want to play the jingle?
Play the jingle.
Happy 10th episode, everybody.
Happy 10th episode.
Happy 10th.
Thank you for tuning in.
And here's to 10 more.
Hanging out just another night of the week. Or to be more specific, it's a Tuesday Eve. Got some ideas that just might intrigue. You should come on by tonight. We're spilling the beans.
Oh my God.
I know it's This is a heavy microphone.
Yeah.